Hey folks, welcome to Unqualified, the fantasy football podcast that's been unimpressed by Magic since 2017. I'm your producer, Rob Diesendorf, here with Scott Johnson and Sean Brady, two fantasy football rivals that have been sabotaging each other for years, but they decided to come together to help you win your league and make your friends look like idiots. Scott, are you excited? I said your name first.
Yes, I was just putting my thumbs up for a long time since you said that was a surprise. I didn't know.
Almost screwed myself up there for a minute because I wasn't used to the cadence.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have to redo it. That was,
yeah.
I feel great right now. 35 episodes in, you finally changed it. Thank you.
Yeah, 35 episodes. Powered through it.
Probably change it back. It's fine. I'm not like unimpressed by Magic, but once you find out like how they do the trick, that ruins it for me.
I spend the entire time trying to figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it. Like, I never fall for when they try to get you to look away from them. I always just like stare at them and they try to like misdirect your eyes. Never fall for that. I can never figure it out anyway. So I guess you could say I'm definitely impressed by Magic, but I'm skeptical.
I saw the inside of one joke one time, and that I made it sound weird. That's Anyway, the guy, you know, when they take the like the stuff out of their throat, and like it's like confetti coming out. Yeah, I like saw because I think he like I was young and he like pulled me off the stage, and I saw like a little thing in his mouth and it was just pulling from there, and I was like, oh, that's lame. Not that I should have thought he was actually pulling confetti out of his like stomach.
Mind blown right there.
Wait, even if he was pulling it out of something in his mouth, like how big was that?
It like fit like perfectly on the outside of his mouth, kind of thing. Like
how long was the like? You're talking when they pull the handkerchiefs out of their mouth?
Yeah, kind of like the handkerchief, or like it was like a like streamers kind of thing, like different color streamers. You just like keep on pulling it out for like 5 minutes straight. I must have really tightly packed it into that container that he had in there, but
I'm still conflicted on whether Magic is cool or not. Like, are magicians cool or are they not?
They're illusions.
What's the definitive?
I don't know.
It's only cool if they're called
illusion?
illusionists. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe their coolness is part of the magic trick.
I don't think there's a difference.
It's an illusion.
Illusionist. I don't know. Is there any illusionists that are not magicians? Is it kind of like squares and rectangles? Like not all.
All I know is David Blaine
squares.
and Mind Freak.
Yeah, David Blaine.
Mind Freak was the guy that like flew through the skies, which I have no idea how he did that.
He's a witch.
It's got to be strings. Like they got to be hanging him by strings. I don't know.
Time will tell.
Definitely not real.
So David Blaine, is he an illusionist?
David Blaine? Yeah. I don't know.
Well, get back to us on that, guys.
So we're in week 2. Crazy week 1 has happened. What happened in week 2? Was it as crazy as week 1?
Week 2 was like a little bit more of what we would expect from a week, like a typical fantasy football week. Week 1 is always wonky. Week 2, we're starting to understand a couple of these teams that we had question marks on, and I don't know, it's not always for the best. Like, for example, the Cowboys and the Seahawks, two of the teams that were the class of the NFC for a couple of years. They're so boring, and they're just not helping you fantasy-wise. So a lot of that stuff, a lot of things becoming disillusioned, if you will.
Oh,
nice one.
Nice segue.
That was so sick. Yeah, week 2, like the surprises from week 1, like Matt Breida, however you pronounce it. Really got to work on my pronunciations. Philip Lindsay on the Broncos. Week 2 is like almost to solidify if they're actually for real or not. And those two that I just mentioned seem like they're for real. And week 2, just, again, like 1 week is wonky. You don't know what's going on. It's the first week of the season. Now you have a couple of like weeks under their belts, and they're getting more and more carries and target share. That's how you know they're solidified or not, and or if they're for real or not.
Yeah, and to everyone's surprise, I won another game this week, and this was in the real league.
Not against me, though.
League.
Not against me.
No, not against Scott. Scott beat me, but that's irrelevant.
In Brady Bros, I beat you.
The important part is that, and we said we were going to update this every week. I am 2-2. 2-2. Okay, so I'm not good or bad yet. I'm not good or bad yet. We're still waiting to on the verdict.
You're figuring it out. You're figuring it out.
But we're going to figure it out.
Scott, how long do you think Rob keeps Mixon in his lineup?
Should we tell him to keep him in there? Yeah, probably till week 10. I would think he's gonna maybe until week 4, and then take him out of your lineup in week 5 when he's miraculously coming back. What happened to him? Oh, that's good. That's good. It's funny you ask. He got an arthroscopic knee surgery. He's not going to be out for like 2 weeks, so you should probably take him out of your lineup.
Oh no.
Shit. Yeah, so go do that now before you forget. While honestly, while Scott and I get into some of these week 3 games.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go do that now.
Sean, what's your record so far? Are we doing a record check-in?
I honestly had a great week this week. I was actually extremely lucky in the OG League. I won by 0.8 points over Chris McKnight, who actually beat me in the championship last year. So it felt so good to get revenge on him. And then won the other 2 leagues. So I am 5-1 right now.
Nice. I have 7 leagues.
Jesus,
don't know
Christ.
why. And so it's 14 games. I'm 10-4 right now.
Wow. Impressive that you can even
weeks.
keep track of that. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how I keep track of it. One of the leagues, though, that I'm 0-2 in is the loser has to get a spray tan at the end of the year. And I'm in dead last out of 12 teams. Like, I have the least points for. I had Leonard Fournette, who got hurt. I have Jarvis Landry, who's like kind of underwhelming so far. Matthew Stafford. I benched Deion Lewis week 1 for some reason, and I would have won if I played him over Jamal Williams. It's just not a good situation. So in January, you guys might be seeing really tan me.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it's not even like it's a decent time to get a spray tan. It's going to be.
It's the worst time. It's the worst time to get a spray tan.
It's going to be like the first week back after like Christmas break, basically. Like that's just wild.
Yeah. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
All right, let's do some rapid fire bandwagon check-ins before we get to some of these week 3 games, and mine are really quick because 2 of my guys, the wagon rode off the rails last week. So Dalvin Cook still waiting on that breakout. We haven't kicked it into high gear yet. We're still the engine's still sputtering a little bit, but it's coming. I promise you. And then my other one, this is like the definition of a bandwagon right here. What a ride this has been following Josh Gordon the past week. So we don't know. He apparently injured his hamstring doing a promotional shoot. There's like, I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up. We don't know if it's a Browns promotional shoot or like a personal one, whatever. Long story short, the Browns, I think it was Saturday, the story comes out that they're planning on releasing him. Obviously, a lot of teams around the league kind of raise their eyebrows and start to, sniff and, kind of tread the water and see what it's like, dip their toe in the pool a little bit. And the Patriots wind up dealing for him on Monday. And this is just, I think, bad news for the AFC. I think Josh Gordon, as long as he is on the field for the Patriots, I don't see any reason why he's not a fantasy starter every week.
Yeah, and it's like sneakily similar to when they traded for Randy Moss in 2007, and he had that miraculous year with 20 touchdowns. I'm not saying Josh Gordon's going to have 20 touchdowns, but it's kind of sneakily similar. And they I don't know, 4 days ago, they signed Corey Coleman, Josh Gordon's old teammate on the Browns. They released him today, too, just to make room. So, yeah, Josh Gordon, I mean, he could sputter and fail and miserably, but the opportunity's there. He's still 27 years old. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he just gives them a dimension they didn't already have. So, I mean, the Patriots kind of protected themselves with like a stipulation in the trade where if he doesn't play 10 games, they get a conditional pick back. So they're going to use him. They didn't trade for him to just have him sit on the bench, and I think he could really start to emerge into what we thought he would be. And I think he's in a much better situation now. I'm excited for the Josh Gordon Express, even if it's on my division rival. So I'll deal with it. But
yeah, he needed to get out of Cleveland too. That was like the best thing for his career. All right, my bandwagon got Pat Mahomes, who has 10 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. You're welcome. No, I'm just kidding. We both said it, and it was like the writing was on the wall. But he looks like he could be this year's Carson Wentz, which is what we said multiple times this offseason. So that's awesome. Put him in. He's a top 10 quarterback easily for the rest of the year, I think. Royce Freeman, kind of sputtering a little bit. We all thought he was going to be the best rookie, and I did too. Rookie running back. It looks like a time split between him and Philip Lindsay, and it's eerily similar to the Saints last year when they had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, who came out of nowhere, kind of like Philip Lindsay is with the Broncos, and they both had pretty serviceable years last year. If you do remember, they were both top 10. I'm not saying Royce Freeman is going to be top 10, and I'm not saying Philip Lindsay is either. And I kind of, after last week, didn't think Philip Lindsay was for real. Now I think it's pretty split evenly, and they both could be like running back twos. So not off the bandwagon yet, but a little curious. And if you haven't picked up Philip Lindsay as a Royce owner, do it now. Jay Ajayi left the game and had a back injury, which freaked everyone out, but came back in and scored a touchdown. So still looking like a solid running back two. Devin Funchess, 7 catches, a good amount of targets, almost double-digit targets. So kind of getting back into the swing of things. I think Christian McCaffrey is honestly their best target there now and best receiver, but Funchess is solid number 2. And then Kyle Rudolph, finally almost 10 catches. I think he had 7 or 8 catches, and finally looking like a back-end tight end 1. So bandwagon's looking pretty good. Pretty comfy still.
Yeah, nice and cozy as opposed to mine, which is like a high-risk, high-reward go-kart race down a mountain.
Always how it
with
is.
Josh Gordon. Yeah, exactly.
Ride or die.
All right, so we're going to do things a little bit differently this time on the pod. We're going to talk about the Week 3 games and kind of go in depth on each matchup and tell you what to expect from each game. And I think that'll help you guys a little bit more than the old format. Hopefully it does. If not, get active in the channels. Let us know. But we're going to give it a shot today and see how it goes. So this first set of games we have to talk about are going to be the games with the most eyeballs on them this week. The primetime games. We're going to start with Thursday night, which is shockingly interesting. We have the Jets, our beloved Jets, traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Again, this game, if you told me 6 months ago was going to be a lot of fun, I would have laughed at you. I would have laughed at you and just called you an idiot. But this is, I'm like stoked for this game. I think these teams are nowhere near Super Bowl contenders, but they are a lot of fun to watch. A lot of talent on both sides of the ball on both teams. Scott, what do you make of this matchup? Am I wrong to be amped about this?
No, they're two really gritty teams. I think we got a really good insight into the Browns in the offseason with Hard Knocks. Not in love with the coaching staff. I do like Todd Haley a lot when he yells, "Good job, you fucking kicker," and doesn't remember the kicker's name that they actually just
and then they cut him.
Yeah. Good job, you fucking Zane. And then the Jets, obviously, our beloved Jets, who dazzled in week 1, but then sputtered in week 2. I think they're just two gritty teams. I think for the Browns, if you want to, let's go individually for each team. The Browns running backs, especially Carlos Hyde, is a solid running back too. And we had mentioned, he's going in a good position. And he's talented enough to warrant that status. So keep him in your lineups. I would put him in a flex. Like, I feel more comfortable with him as a flex instead of my running back 2. But let's say you have like a Todd Gurley, Jay Ajayi combo, 1-2 punch. Put Hyde in your flex, but I wouldn't feel bad about playing him as of now. Nick Chubb has not taken any carries away from him. He's only had 4 touches total so far in the past 2 weeks. Jarvis Landry, with Josh Gordon leaving, should be a solid wide receiver 2, pushing for wide receiver 1 with PPR, but checking his health. He was questionable after the game. Antonio Callaway is our You're Not Ron player, one of our You're Not Ron players.
Absolutely.
Came out of nowhere. Only 5 targets, but 4 for 94 and 1 touchdown. So solid second receiver for them. Not going to fill the void for Josh Gordon, but definitely could be like a low-end flex, deep league kind of guy. So maybe put him on your radars for deeper leagues, like 12 or 14 team or man leagues. And then David Njoku can't catch for shit. So just don't worry about him. I wouldn't play either defense, really. Jets running backs, it's going to be like a crapshoot who's going to do well each week, and it's just like a time split. So both flexes, but kind of low end. I think Quincy Enunwa is like a new low end or a high end flex guy, especially in PPR leagues. Robbie Anderson, he's not the number 1 guy there. Quincy Enunwa is, especially for as a safety valve for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just put in real quick. I actually am a Robbie Anderson owner on 2 different teams. On one team, I don't really need a ton of help, so I'm keeping him around. I'm waiting out this slump a little bit, the season opening slump. But on another team, I have him, and I'm thinking about cutting him this week because I really need some help, and he's not giving it to me right now. So I need more of an instant return, and with Robbie Anderson, it's going to take a little bit of time. So we'll see how that goes. Love Enunwa. I've loved him on the Jets since he started playing for us. So I'm kicking myself that I didn't see this coming, but definitely a good waiver
definitely
wire
pick him up. Yeah, absolutely. If he's not picked up, he should be owned in all leagues.
All right, so that does it for the Jets at Browns. Hopefully the Jets come out of that on top and go 2-1. We're going to look at Sunday night, where the Patriots are playing the Lions, the master and the pencil bearded apprentice over here. So
I didn't forget about that. Yeah,
there's absolutely no way that the Patriots don't absolutely eviscerate the Lions defense this week. It's just going to be a bloodbath. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, honestly, after the Lions almost beat the 49ers, and the Patriots lost to the Jaguars this past week, I think the Patriots are going to be pissed, especially with Josh Gordon. I think they're going to try to unleash him. He has to pass his physical, so everyone check on his status. And I wouldn't just go guns blazing into putting him in your lineups. If you need, like, if you've been eviscerated by injuries like Doug Baldwin or Leonard Fournette, and you can't really afford to put Josh Gordon on your bench. And the other thing is, like, I don't want to be the one to tell you to bench him, and then he goes off for 2 touchdowns and 100 yards from Tom Brady. So it's very high risk, high reward. But yeah, the Patriots, like everyone that you usually would play, Gronk, Tom Brady, play him. Josh Gordon, I would check on his status, see how many snaps he's going to play. I'm sure they'll release that. Chris Hogan, 2 touchdowns last week, looked pretty good. Starting to get back into form, like a low end flex guy. And Sony Michel didn't dazzle too much, but he looks like he's going to get like 2/3 of the carries. So I would plug him in as like a low end flex kind of guy. And then the Lions on the other end, Stafford definitely came back to form. I think he got the week 1 jitters off his chest, and I think he'll be fine season long, like a low end QB1. Running backs I would stay away from, and then I think in this order, the wide receivers for the Lions, it should be Tate, Galladay, and Jones. I think Jones is the last guy in that pecking order. I think Galladay could be a wide receiver too. He's shown a lot this past 2 weeks, and Tate's like more of a PPR machine. So Galladay, I actually like Galladay a little bit more than Tate. I think he needs to be in all lineups.
Yeah, the way I see that shaking out is when the Lions are close and they need a key first down throw. An announcer said it. It was one of the smartest things I've heard an announcer say all season. He said, "This is going to Tate or it's going to Theo Riddick," and I was like, "Oh, that makes it makes so much sense." The problem is the Lions are not often close, and when they're not, Matt Stafford chucks the ball to Kenny Galladay. So Kenny Galladay is going to have a lot of targets, especially when they're trying to play catch-up. Galladay might outscore the other 2 receivers at the end of the year, and I wouldn't surprise me. So definitely keep him on your radar. If he's still out there for some reason on your waivers, go pick him up because, again, he's a wide receiver too at this point.
Yeah, and Galladay last year, we mentioned a couple of pods ago that when Galladay was on the field last year, Marvin Jones only had 5 targets a game. When Galladay was out of the lineups, which is when he was hurt, which is kind of a lot last year, Marvin Jones had 11 targets per game. So it's basically like inverse relationship. If Galladay's out there, Jones is the one suffering. Galladay is on pace for about 1,500 yards now and like 8 touchdowns. So not that he's going to keep it up, but it's a really cool stat when you see it on ESPN. Like after 2 weeks, they do extrapolate like what those 2 games would be over a 16-game season. Galladay is on pace for 1,600 or 1,500 yards and like 8 touchdowns. So put him in the lineups.
Yeah, and if we take that same kind of technique and move it over to another couple of guys on the Steelers and Bucks, I can't even imagine what they would be. I'm not even going to tell you to look it up because that would just be brutal. So we're looking at the Monday night game. ESPN, honestly, they lucked out with this. They probably are happier than anyone that the Bucks are having this resurgence here. This could be the 3rd shootout in a row for both teams. Both teams are coming off 3 high-scoring matchups. I'm pumped for this game as well. On the Steelers side, though, things are getting very dicey. So we have Big Ben here. He's on the road. So that's a big question mark for me. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, historically, he's never good on the road, right? Week 1, I believe he was away and threw 4 picks. Was he?
Yep.
He was away in Cleveland. Yep.
Yeah, they were.
Threw 4 picks. It was shitty weather or 3 picks. And then this past week, he was home versus the Chiefs, correct?
Yeah.
And he had 3 touchdowns. So like,
he's a
it's
monster.
Just Jekyll and Hyde. Yeah. So he's on the road. Downgrade him. He's a QB2, as he should be. It's just like, I know we want to talk about AB, Antonio Brown. It feels like this team needs like, what's the word for it?
A pep talk?
A pep talk? Yeah. They need to like clean house a little bit. Like Le'Veon Bell is probably going to leave anyway. He's causing a lot of problems with the offensive line. They love James Conner, and I really like him too. I think he should have the job. Antonio Brown is having a lot of issues. He didn't show up on Monday to the training facility or something like that for a film session, and he's kind of on the rocks with the coaches and fighting with people on Twitter. Juju Smith outperformed him completely. And I was
In both
completely
weeks.
wrong about him in the offseason. He's a wide receiver too. He should be in every lineup too. And Jesse James did pretty well, but kind of fluky. Like he usually catches like 5 yards per catch. So it just feels like this team needs like a
hard
revamp.
reset.
Yeah. So it's probably going to be a shootout. But the Bucks, I mean, ride Ryan Fitzpatrick while you can. You might not have the job after this week. Peyton Barber, get him out of your lineups. He's not 16 carries for 22 yards is terrible. Mike Evans is a solid wide receiver 1. Deshaun Jackson should be in lineups too as like a flex guy. And then I would be careful with OJ Howard. He only had 4 or 5 targets and he had like a long play. It was kind of lucky. He just ran through the Philly Eagles defense, but seems like a solid like back end tight end 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just go back to Juju for 1 second. If these issues with Antonio Brown continue, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be the absolute steal of this year's draft, because if he's out, Juju he's not just a wide receiver 1. I think he's a top 5 receiver if Antonio Brown's not there. He's been incredible thus far, and that's with Antonio Brown in the lineup. If he's getting force-fed 20 targets a game for the whole year, there's no way he doesn't end the year as a league winner for you. So, again, you're kind of crossing your fingers for the bad stuff to happen if you're a Juju owner, because he's on the right side of things right now. And I don't know. As an Antonio Brown owner, I'm really, really starting to get nervous.
Yeah, it looks like he's on the rock. I mean, he's 29 years old. Like he's gonna, or maybe he's 30 now. I don't know. It's just weird offseason stuff with the Steelers. They don't have any control over that team. One thing I will say is the Steelers' pass defense is like 28th in the league right now against wide receivers and tight ends, like pretty much everything. So you might think like Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't going to keep it up. I'm not saying he's going to get 4 touchdowns again. It's kind of hard to keep that pace up. But I can see him getting 300 yards and 2-3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
and he loves Deshaun Jackson and Chris Godwin even too. Like all 3 of those receivers have solid value. I think in this order, they're Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Chris Godwin, and they're wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and 3 respectively. All right, so that was the primetime games. Let's get into the quick hitters. So basically, this is a nice way of saying like there's one or both teams that are irrelevant. So the first one to kick it off is the Bills at the Vikings. Obviously, the Vikings are for real this year. Bills are one of the most, if not the most, irrelevant teams in the NFL, probably next to the Cardinals. But Bills at Vikings, what are you thinking here? Staying away from Bills for sure, right?
Yeah, there is 0% chance that the Bills are within 17 or 21 points of the Vikings in this game. The Vikings are probably the number, I would say, as of right now, the most complete team in the NFL, not just the NFC. And the Bills are one of the 2 worst teams in the league. So there's absolutely no way this goes, the other way. There's even in any universe, there's no way the Bills are in this game at all. So what that basically means is you're starting every single Viking you own. If you have Laquan Treadwell and you're on a super deep league, might as well plug him in there, because it's not going to get any easier than the Bills. Everybody else, Dalvin Cook, this is the week. He's got to go for like 120 plus, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns. It's got to happen this week. Thielen and Diggs are out of this world. And then the defense, they might be the highest scoring fantasy player this week is the Vikings defense. Bills, start nobody. That's all I got to say about it.
Easy enough. I agree with all that. I think one thing that I will mention is if Dalvin Cook doesn't go off in this game, then you need to put the panic button on a little bit. And
he's
the RB2. He's not an RB1. Yep. If that happens. So, yeah, Thielen and Diggs, 13 targets each. Both had over 128 yards last week against the Packers. They should be solid wide receiver 1s this year. Hopefully Kyle Rudolph keeps it up too. Next game we got is Titans at the Jaguars.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is another boring one. So the Titans, we got to check on Mariota, but this past week against the Texans, they played Blaine Gabbert, but there were 2 other people that threw passes for them. So Derrick Henry being one of them, and then some safety on a fake punt. We had a pretty good arm, actually. It was Kevin Byard, I think. But what are you thinking for Titans at Jaguars? Anyone on the Titans that you can see starting? I mean, Corey Davis is really underwhelmed so far.
Yeah, I think if you're a Deion Lewis owner, this is probably a good spot for him, because they're going to be behind. They're going to be checking the ball down probably a ton, especially against that pair of cornerbacks on the Jaguars. I'm scared if I'm Derrick Henry owner in this game, because I don't see him really doing a ton. And then Corey Davis, keep him benched for now. I will say this, though. Mike Vrabel is a real NFL coach. Like, he may not be, the offensive genius, or he may not even run his own defense, but he has them aggressive. Like, they're going for it on fourth down with Blaine Gabbert.
I love it.
Faking punts. So this game might be a little more chippy than you might expect, and this is huge for the Jaguars. They want to wrap up their division, and they need to do it now and, make it easier on themselves. My biggest question for the Jaguars, as far as fantasy is concerned, is what's going on with Keelan Cole? He was amazing last week, and he wasn't great week one. What do you think about him, Scott? He's my biggest question here. I think Bortles is a sneaky option, and obviously just if Fournette's playing, you play him. The biggest question mark, though, has got to be that wide receiver core.
Yeah, I think Keelan Cole is the guy that's going to emerge out of there, and we mentioned him at the beginning of the year. It was either him or like D.D. Westbrook. D.D. Westbrook had a really good week, too.
Yeah.
Dante Moncrief had a touchdown. I think the target spread was Dante Moncrief had 9 last week against New England. Keelan Cole had 8. D.D. Westbrook had 5. And that kind of says it all. Like, Keelan Cole is going to get the most. Dante Moncrief, I think they were taking a lot of deep shots to him, or trying to at least, because they were just keeping the Patriots on their toes, and Blake Bortles threw it 45 times, which he's not going to do. I think Keelan Cole is the number one guy there, and I think a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end flex is his, like, where he's at right now. I think he's the only one I would start. But yeah, that running game, if without Fournette, it kind of sucks. Like, I would just TJ Yeldon had a good week one, but then just completely shit the bed, and Corey Grant was catching a lot of balls. So just stay away from the running game there if Fournette does not play. Next game we got is Bears at the Cardinals, and the Cardinals might be the worst team in the NFL. I said that about the Bills before, because that the Bills are one of the worst, because the Cardinals might actually be the worst.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears should easily handle them here. The Bears really impressive on Monday night against the Seahawks. The Bears are not, again, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender right now, but they're a good team, and the Cardinals are just flat out not. So I think the Bears, I think you're starting probably both running backs. Cohen, I'm a little bit shakier on. If you're in a standard league, you're not starting him, but PPR, he's like a low-end flex still. Jordan Howard is pretty rock solid as a low-end RB2. Allen Robinson, 10 catches. He's definitely worth playing, and Trey Burton got in the end zone. You see the different ways they want to use him. He's kind of that like shovel pass, Travis Kelce light option for the Bears. So I definitely would play your Bears this week, and then especially that Bears defense. Oh my God, Khalil Mack, man among boys. He really is. On the Cardinals side, you're basically crossing your fingers that they decide to go to Josh Rosen sooner rather than later, just because I think the upside he gives is going to be better. Obviously, the downside is it can't get much worse than what they're at right now. So you might as well make that switch at some point. David Johnson, it's similar to like a Dalvin Cook situation. Like he's got to start getting things going, and I don't even know if it's all his fault. He needs more targets in the passing game, because he's like 1B to Le'Veon Bell's 1A for the best receiving running backs in the league, and they're not targeting him enough. And hopefully that turns around. Larry Fitz, you got to be nervous. I'd probably take him out of my lineup until we get a competent quarterback play there.
Yep, I agree, and I would downgrade David Johnson as like he's still running back 1, but like a low end running back 1 now.
Yeah,
until they get a serviceable passing game without. Is their quarterback's name again?
Bradford.
Sam Bradford. Jesus. All right, next game we got is Cowboys, and by the way, like these games, like the Bills at the Vikings. The Vikings is one of the best defensive plays this week. Titans at Jaguars. I think the Jaguars defense could be really good if Blaine Gabbert plays. Bears at Cardinals. Bears is one of the best defensive plays this week. So these like quick hitter matchups, look for these defenses if they're on waiver wires. If they're on the waiver wire. Cowboys at Seahawks. So Seahawks kind of suck this year.
Yeah, people were saying it. I almost couldn't believe it, because they just have Russell Wilson. I almost said Russell Westbrook. Basically the same guy. One-man teams. I mean, yikes. There's a reason I mentioned these two teams at the start of the podcast. They're really on my mind because it's kind of depressing. They're last year or the year before, this game is like Monday Night Football. Everyone's watching. We're seeing who's going to be in the title game, who's got it, who doesn't. Now it's just like, which one of these teams can like stay afloat and be like around 500? I'm worried. I mean, Dak, I don't think you're playing him, even though the Seahawks defense is not what it once was. Zeke, you have to keep in your lineup, but again, as long as they're not firing on all cylinders, he's not. I wouldn't even say he's a low end RB1. He's more of like a mid range RB1. He's not at that high end that you drafted him at. So you got to hope things turn around for him at some point. Maybe they get Frederick back sooner rather than later, hopefully. And then the Seahawks, that's just depressing. I'm going to let you handle that one, Scott, because you're a Russell Wilson owner. I usually am. This year I'm not, so I actually don't know too much about what he looks like. I haven't watched him a ton this year, but it doesn't look pretty based on the numbers.
Yeah, and one of the commentators had a really good point. They said that Russell Wilson does so well because with his feet because he makes plays happen out of thin air, right? So the play calling is good, yeah, sure, but he's at his best when he's out of the pocket and he's making a play to Doug Baldwin or Tyler Lockett on the run. With the Bears, and which I think more teams are going to try to follow suit. I mean, Khalil Mack is a once in a lifetime kind of player, but if you pressure him with athletic guys like Khalil Mack or Von Miller in week 1 against
maybe
Russell
DeMarcus
Wilson,
Lawrence this week,
DeMarcus Lawrence coming up, yep, exactly. They're gonna and if Russell doesn't have the weapons that he's had in the past, without Doug Baldwin, he's not going to do as well, and he can't make plays happen out of thin air because the teams are already planning on that and putting pressure on it, so he doesn't have time to do that. So, yeah, Russell owners, I think he's going to be a QB1, but a low-end QB1. But, yeah, the only guy I think of playing on the Cowboys is Zeke. Everyone else should be in your bench. I really like Tyler Lockett, 7 targets, and he's the de facto number 1 guy there. And Will Dissly is a speculative ad, and he's a tight end 2 for me right now. He's the number 1 tight end in fantasy. I would just give it 1 or 2 more weeks before I name him your starter. But let's say you have I don't know, even Trey Burton. Yeah, he had a touchdown, but he hasn't been a focal point of that offense. If you have a Trey Burton, I would pick up Will Dissly as a backup.
Yeah, why not?
Next game we got is Raiders at Dolphins. So these two teams, I love John Gruden, the fit with the Raiders, but tumultuous offseason, lost Khalil Mack. Derek Carr is very underwhelming. The Dolphins are somehow in first place in the AFC East, but it doesn't seem like it's for real. What do you think of these two teams in this game?
These are the wild cards of this section of games, and honestly, in all of fantasy football, because you're looking at Marshawn Lynch and you're counting on him to make stuff happen with what do you get? 14 carries last week. He had I think around 10 the week
18.
before.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's more than I thought. Again,
18 but 65 yards. That's it.
Right, you're kind of banking on a touchdown, and that's not the position you want to do that with. I as a Amari Cooper owner, I'm really hoping he's back. I think he might be because they targeted him a ton and he looked much better. Carr actually looked pretty good against the Broncos, so I'm hoping that connection is good, especially because there will probably be some garbage time or at least some shootouts coming up. I'm not touching Martavis Bryant or Jordy Nelson. Jared Cook still, he kind of came back down to earth. We kind of knew that was going to happen. So, I wouldn't cut him from your team right now, but I would probably take him out of the lineup because it's going to be up and down. And it's not the worst position for that, but you could probably do better. On the Dolphins side, I saw this up close and personal. They played well against the Jets. Tannehill, you called this preseason. He's a sneaky good QB option this year. He is just very efficient. He's just a competent NFL quarterback. He really gets the most out of his receivers. Albert Wilson looked great against the Jets. Kenny Stills down a little bit, but again, he had an incredible week 1, and that's kind of what he's known for. Kenyon Drake, solid RB2. So this team, you may see, you look at the Dolphins, or at least I do, and I see just volatility, especially with that BS with their offensive line coach last year, but they're pretty solid offense right now. You could do a lot worse.
Yeah, I like the one stat I'll say really quickly about Amari Cooper: 10 targets, he caught all 10.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to anoint him as a wide receiver 1, but definitely should be in lineups. And I think last week we mentioned put him in your flex, but don't take him out yet because he could just go off like he did last year, for 200 yards.
Literally,
so keep him in your lineups, but just downgrade your expectations a little bit. And maybe play some steady guys with him because he's so boom or bust.
All right, so now we're going to look at some interesting matchups. Still trying to think of a better name for games like these, but honestly, these are teams that are either highly volatile or, just good teams with, playing against other teams that you kind of want to see where they measure up, where they stack up against the rest of the league. So we'll start with the Giants and Texans, and I will say this game easily could have been in the last segment, but there's a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. Scott, what do you think of the Giants-Texans this week?
Yeah, the Giants, obviously you're starting OBJ, you're starting Saquon. Saquon had 14 catches, which is unbelievable. He's a PPR machine. He only had 10 for 30 rushing. I just think it's a lot of play calling. Pat Shurmur hasn't really shored that play calling up, and Eli is I don't know. Eli looks off. That offensive line is brutal, though. So OBJ, Lowen, wide receiver 1, Saquon, running back 1 with PPR especially. The Texans, Deshaun Watson, he looked really off last week against, or I guess a week and a half ago against the Patriots. And this past week, he also looked off. He did okay for fantasy purposes, but I think he needs to rely on Will Fuller a lot more. 8 for 113 and 1 touchdown. Will Fuller is back. Put him in your lineups. And Lamar Miller and Hopkins. Yeah, Lamar Miller is a flex. Hopkins is still a wide receiver 1-2 tweener to me. Honestly, I don't see him as being like a top 3 guy again this year.
Yeah, I think if Fuller's healthy the whole year, it's probably going to downgrade Hopkins just a little bit. And I agree on Fuller. He's an absolute stud. I will say this, though. I would much rather have a Texans receiver than a Giants receiver. I actually cut Sterling Shepard in one of my teams. He's just not getting the volume or the depth of target you need. Evan Ingram, definitely keep him in your lineups, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not very enthused with him.
Sorry, I should take it back about DeAndre Hopkins. He had 11 targets and 6 receptions for 110 yards and 1 touchdown. I didn't realize he did that well this past week against the Titans. But it's like closer than you think between him and Fuller. That's all I say. All I'll say.
All right, let's look at the Packers at the Redskins. 2 very interesting teams here. I like to call these guys the fantasy football upper middle class because there's no like top-notch player. I mean, maybe Devontae Adams is probably in that class, but there's no guy that's going to be carrying your team. But these guys can make up a very good roster. So what do you think of these 2 teams this week, Scott?
Yeah, thank God Aaron Jones is coming back because Jamal Williams is so underwhelming as a rusher, and I just can't wait for him to not be the starter anymore. Aaron Jones, as long as he stayed healthy and as explosive as he was last year, is the most explosive running back in that team. And let's say you're in a position where you have like a Joe Mixon and he's out, or like Jay Ajayi and he's still kind of banged up but should play. You can't really afford to keep Aaron Jones on your bench. I think the reason you draft him so late is because, or at all, is because you knew he was coming back from suspension and you kind of eat the bullet. You had to eat the bullet for 2 weeks, but it's up in the air how many carries he'll get, and Jamal Williams will get. But I think he's like a low end flex kind of guy, like a dart throw. Aaron Rodgers is really banged up. The only reason that team was in that game is because of Mason Crosby, who's a kicker 1, a K1.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we consider the, or like whatever, they're just kickers. But yeah, Devontae Adams, wide receiver 1. Cobb and Geronimo, Allison, it's going to be give and take every week with them. So I don't think you play either one. And Jimmy Graham, I think it's a facade. The only time Aaron Rodgers has had a tight end 1 is Jermichael Finley in 2011. So I don't think it's going to last. Redskins, Alex Smith, he's a good pickup, but he's a QB2, and Chris Thompson is a really good PPR running back.
I love him.
That's about it. Jordan Reed is a solid tight end 1 or 2.
Yeah, Chris Thompson, really effective PPR player, and honestly showing no signs of that injury that was supposed to slow him down. So maybe he was just throwing people off his scent so he can own himself in fantasy. Who knows? But either way, I'm excited about these players. All right, so let's look at the next game. We have the Bengals at the Panthers. I like to call these teams the elite but incomplete offenses. Nice little internal rhyme there for all you poetry people out there. Scott, what do you think of these 2 offenses?
Yeah, Andy Dalton, it looks like a solid, like if you're in a 2 QB league, I would feel really good about having him as a second quarterback. 4 touchdowns this past week, and AJ Green looks like one of the best receivers in the NFL. Him and Michael Thomas, I think, are like my 1 and 2, honestly. Tyler Boyd looked actually really interesting. He had 9 targets and 92 yards, I think, on 6 catches. So he looks like a speculative ad. I wouldn't put him in your lineups yet, but could be like the number 2 guy there behind AJ Green. I think I would rather have him than John Ross, who's more explosive but less consistent. Joe Mixon is out this week, though. He just had arthroscopic knee surgery, so Giovanni Bernard seems like a solid low-end running back, too, especially in PPR leagues for the time being for the next week or 2. I think Mixon will be out this week and next week, so keep that in mind. Panthers, really like Christian McCaffrey. He had 13 catches, I think, this past week, and looks like a number 1 target. Funchess is Cam's number 2 target behind McCaffrey, and that's like it. The Panthers are kind of weird this year. I think Cam is a solid QB. You can't really afford to like not put him in your lineups, but he's not going to be a top 5, 10 guy. I think he's like 10 or 11 or 12.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely most surprised this year with the Bengals. I think last year we kind of called them. We saw that coming a mile away that they were going to be, one of the doormats of the AFC. But they're back. Their offensive coordinator, Bill Lazor, is really solid. He gets Dalton in good spots, and Mixon definitely a good trade target. I'm actually trying to get him in a couple leagues. Not to spoil it for anybody. I'm not even going to try trading with Rob because I don't want to rip him off. So the other league that I see Mixon out there, I'm going to try to get him. So he's definitely someone to keep in mind. Let's look at the Broncos at the Ravens, the last game here from the interesting teams. These are very defensive teams with defensive identities, but they are starting to get some offensive signs of life. They're definitely volatile still, but what do you think of the Broncos at Ravens with their new look offenses?
Yeah, I think both of these defenses are really good, so it's going to be a defensive stalwart battle here. I think Case Keenum, teams are figuring him out. He's not really for real. I'd rather have Andy Dalton than him for reference. Philip Lindsay is easily, he needs to be rostered in 100% of leagues. Hopefully Royce owners have him because, again, like what we said before, it looks like a poor man's version of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara last year when the Saints. The passing game, it's kind of spluttering. Emmanuel Sanders seems like a better option than Demaryius Thomas, who had 5 catches for 18 yards this past week. I would keep Demaryius out of lineups, and maybe your first bench. He's like your first bench guy off the bench, and Sanders. I mean, do with him what you will, but I would never play him ever or even own him. The Ravens, on the other end of the spectrum, I think John Brown needs to be rostered in all leagues, and he seems like the best pass catcher there. The running game seems kind of boring, and it almost seems like a timeshare between Javorius Allen and Alex Collins, so I would actually stay away from it.
Yeah, if you're ever looking at your lineup and you're wondering, is this guy actually any good at football? Probably not the most exciting guy for your lineup. So Alex Collins is a guy that I was a little bit unsure of heading into the year because he was pretty solid last year, but watching him play, he's a good player, but as far as fantasy football goes, I don't see it. He's a flex play for me. Love me some John Brown. I've been a John Brown apologist for a while, so this is getting me juiced up seeing him really start to break out. So John Brown, put him in your lineups, put him in the flex spot, and just ride the wave.
All right, our last section of games. These are the game of the week contenders. These are going to be the best fantasy value and the most going on for fantasy purposes that we think, at least. So first game we got 49ers at the Chiefs. What are we thinking here? Two really fun offenses, honestly. The Chiefs are dazzling this year.
Yeah, they are. And coming into the year, these are probably the two quarterbacks outside of, how Deshaun Watson looked coming off his injury that people are probably the most excited to watch. Jimmy Garoppolo for the 49ers and Pat Mahomes, the homie for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm stoked for this game. I really think no one's going to stop Kansas City right now. They might set some type of record if things keep up this way. As far as the 49ers go, though, they should be able to score on Kansas City and kind of keep up for a little bit in this game. I think they're going to lose, but I think they can keep up. I think they can put up 30 points on them. Jimmy Garoppolo might be a play here if your quarterback's underperforming and he's your backup. Matt Breida leading the NFL in rushing right now. He's definitely our "you're not Ron" player of weeks 1 and 2 because we kind of knew his name coming in, but we didn't think he'd be leading the NFL in rushing. He's really been an explosive player for them. Definitely someone that you want to plug in your flex spot because you probably didn't draft him as much more than that, so you might as well. As far as the wide receivers are concerned, Goodwin's still out with that weird thigh bruise injury. I have no idea what's going on there. I wouldn't play any receiver on that team, even though Garoppolo I kind of like. You just don't know who it's going to be. It's a little bit of whack-a-mole there. But I love George Kittle. I think he's definitely a low-end tight end 1. He's like a Gronk light for Garoppolo, who's kind of like a Brady light. I really like that tandem there. And the Chiefs, there's not much more to be said. Just start every Chief you have, including Sammy Watkins. If you're weak at your flex spot, you might as well roll the dice. Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 1. Kareem Hunt, I think this might be his breakout game. They haven't needed him too much, but when he gets going, we saw what he could do last year. Mahomes, you said top 10 quarterback. He's like a top 5 quarterback right now. So Kelsey too. This is going to be a really fun game. I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, Kelsey's finally back. 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards. So looks like obviously a tight end 1. There was no question, but after 1 catch for 6 yards week 1, it was a little scary. But yeah, Breida is the guy there. Alfred Morris, don't drop him, but put him on squarely on your bench. Next game we got Colts at the Eagles. Never thought I'd be saying the Colts were one of the game of the week contenders because they were so bad last year and they're so boring. But Andrew Luck back looks like he's a fringe QB1, and Eagles, Carson Wentz is back, so this is going to be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Luck very quietly has a solid start to the year, and he's putting a lot of people at ease. He's a fringe QB1 for me right now. The running back situation, I'm kind of staying away from it. I'm keeping my eye on it because I think there's a lot of value to be had. Jordan Wilkins has looked pretty solid. He had like 6 yards of carry last week, and Nyheim Hines had an awesome touchdown and then like didn't get the ball the rest of the game. So don't play these guys, but probably speculative add one or both of them and just kind of see what happens because there might be some value there. Hilton also very quietly having a solid start to the year. So I definitely like the Colts, and I think they can score on the Eagles. I mean, they have maybe not the same talent as the other teams the Eagles have played thus far, but I think that Andrew Luck can get things done there. And then Wentz back. I mean, it just helps everybody. I really like J.J. with Wentz coming back. I would probably play Wentz if I had a QB that's underperforming. And I love Nelson Aguilar. Alshon's coming back. I'd probably wait a week to see how he does, but you know, if you own an Eagle, there's nowhere to go but up. So I'm stoked for this game. This is a matchup of Frank Reich and Doug Peterson. I love it.
Yeah, for reference, like I'd rather play if I had Carson Wentz and like let's say Deshaun Watson or Carson Wentz and Matthew Stafford. I'd rather play Carson Wentz just on the flyer, like on the off chance that he's going to do better than those two teams. I think this is going to be more of a shootout than people think. The Colts defense, one of the worst defending the pass as well, and the Eagles defense has had a lot of holes in it. So the Bucs just like shredded them. So this is going to be a high scoring game, I think. And J.J., I agree, he's going to be a solid running back too with Carson Wentz kind of stretching the field. Check on Jesus, what's his name? Alshon Jeffrey. Because I don't know if he's going to come back. Is he like definitely coming back this week?
I think it's trending that way as opposed to Wentz, which is like definitely. I mean, it may be announced by the time you guys hear this anyway, but I think it looks like he's going to play.
If Alshon is back for sure this week, then I would feel even better about starting Wentz. But even if he's not, Nelson Aguilar is having like a really good solid year, on pace for over 70 catches. So looks like a solid flex, like low end flex guy kind of. Next matchup we got Saints at Falcons.
Oh man, this game is always sick. This is like where people go off. If you own anybody in this game, plug them in. This is like what's going to win you the week. It's going to be a shootout. It's like the dome away from home for Breeze. He's just a dome guy. He's playing in the Falcons' home stadium. So he's a start for me. Kamara is going to shred this defense because they just lost Deion Jones and Keanu Neal in the first couple of weeks. I mean, it's just easy pickings for Kamara. Michael Thomas, like that pace thing you were talking about before, he's on pace for 224 catches. Like, Jesus Christ. Like,
what?
We were all kind of worrying about who was going to be the wide receiver 2, like to own in New Orleans. Guess what? Michael Thomas is the wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 2. Just incredible. So start all your Saints, absolutely. Ted Ginn even is a possible play here in a flex. And then for the Falcons, Tevin Coleman, man, he looked very good this week, filling in for Devontae Freeman. Matt Ryan's not going to have 2 rushing touchdowns every week, so that's going to go Coleman's way more often than not. I love Tevin Coleman. He's like a low-end RB1 right now, as long as Freeman's out. And Julio. I mean, I'm not really thrilled with the other 2 wide receivers. I think they're vulturing from each other. That's Ridley and Sanu, but Julio, definitely a start here. The Saints can't stop him. So Tevin Coleman and Julio Jones, those are like 2 high-end players here for you.
Yeah, I think Ridley is a little home run, like dart throw. He had 4 catches on 5 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown this past week against the Panthers. So another divisional matchup and should be a huge shootout. The Saints defense can't stop anyone, especially their second cornerback. And Julio should have a lot of attention from their defensive backs. So Michael Thomas, Julio, everyone pretty much you're playing. Matt Ryan, I'm not buying into it. He's still a bench guy. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. That's the only reason he did so well last week. Last game of the week contender we got is Chargers at the Rams. What do you got here?
Oh, the battle for LA right here.
Yeah.
I think the Rams put the Chargers in their place here. I think the Chargers are not quite as good as people thought. They're great for fantasy, don't get me wrong, but they're not quite as good an NFL team as we thought they would be. Joey Bosa being out is definitely a huge part of that, but he's still out, so so be it. Chargers-wise, fantasy-wise, though, I'm very intrigued by Austin Eckler. I'm a Melvin Gordon owner, and I'm a little pissed you swiped him like super early. Nice speculative ad by you in that league.
Thank you.
He's a guy that I don't know if I would start right now, but you have to own this guy. He's putting up numbers. He's getting a good amount of touches. I think he has 24 in the first 2 weeks. That's more than enough for a guy like Austin Eckler. He does a lot of damage in the short passing game, the screen game. So he's kind of like that handcuff plus type player now. I really like Mike Williams emerging. Keenan Allen, he started slow last year also. Keep that in mind. He will start to pick up as the season goes on because his game is one that it kind of ages well and it ages into the season well. So don't panic if you're a Keenan Allen owner. And then for the Rams, I mean, Todd Gurley, like the only thing that could slow him down was him getting cramps. Like it just, that's basically it. Otherwise, he could have scored on any single play in that game. That's how good he is right now. Goff, I'm probably not starting him. But he's definitely someone you want to take a look at adding, especially if you're starting to get weak at quarterback. The wide receivers, though, that's probably the biggest question people are going to have with the Rams. I like Cooks the most, but I mean, I own Woods on another team. Kupp has been solid. What do you think about these wide receivers, Scott?
Yeah, it's kind of like Russian roulette. Like Cooks and Woods both had 9 targets each. Cooks just did more with it. He had a long of 57. He had 7 catches for 159 yards. Woods had 6 for 81, which is more realistic. But Cooks is a deep threat there. I just think this is more of a defense and rushing team. Like Todd Gurley is insane. I did have a little scare there, though, so I'm going to probably pick up Malcolm Brown, the backup to Todd Gurley, just on the off chance. Like, he's just a handcuff guy. But Todd Gurley coming out of the game just for cramps even was kind of like, oh, shit kind of moment because I didn't handcuff him. But, yeah, the wide receivers, like Cooper Kupp is a good PPR guy. I think Woods is a good PPR guy, too. But Cooks is the number one guy. He's probably like a low-end wide receiver 2 for me.
And start that Rams defense. Even against the Chargers, they're just so solid, and they just have so many playmakers. They're a team you're keeping in your lineup every week if you're a Rams defense owner.
All right, and that wraps up week 2. The season is back. We're getting into the swing of things. Things are a little bit crazy. Things are a little bit stable. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy.
Maybe you're a little stable.
Maybe I'm a little bit stable. But like I say every episode, this podcast is yours as much as it is. I can never say that.
It's a tough phrase to say. It definitely is.
It's very hard. As much as it is. It's yours.
Say that 3 times.
You know,
holy shit.
You know what people love even more than me screwing that up is our breathy laughter. You know, I think that's one thing about this podcast that people really love.
Yeah, let us know about that, though, if it gets annoying. Because I chuckle every time you guys say something funny, because I just can't help it. But
they tune in for the wheezing and the hot breath.
Like that one.
It's, yeah. But, yeah, it's your podcast as much as it is ours. There it is.
Nice, dude.
And so stay active in the channels. Leave us a review. Leave us a review. I cannot stress how important that is. It's so important to leave reviews.
Important.
Because what that does for us is it gets us higher in the iTunes ranking, which helps more people find the show, which in the end makes the show better because we get more people, more DMs, more people getting active in the channels. And that's what it's all about, people. It's just all about the channels.
Active in the channels.
So tune in next week for more breathy laughter, and we'll see you. We'll see you in the channels.
Well, see you later.
Well, see you later.